Yeah.
All right, so I got to give a shout-out to our guy Manuel for this next topic.
A lot of shout-outs today.
Manuel.
He sent me an email this morning, and he sent me a few emails in the past. He's a big Texans fan. Found UCSS during the Deshaun Watson legal situation, and now says he watches every day from Houston because he finds this entertaining. So shout out to Manuel.
Shout out, Manuel.
He sent me a long
appreciate
email
that.
today about the Myles Garrett situation. I thought part of it was really interesting. He was talking about the cap gymnastics and the Browns' future cap situations and implications of trading Myles. And he mentioned when we had Jack Duffin on a couple weeks ago, Jack saying, well, as long as Jimmy's willing to spend, the Browns can kind of finagle their way out of it. But he posed the question, I'm going to pose it to you guys in a second. Will Jimmy continue to spend at the levels he's been spending the last 4 seasons if the Browns aren't in a Super Bowl or legitimate championship contention window? And take the graphic full. Over the last 4 seasons, 21, 22, 23, and 24, they were top 3 in the league in overall cash spent. Projected salaries that are already on the books for 2025, this is before free agency, before restructures, they are currently first according to Spotrac. So each of the last 5 seasons, the Browns have spent more money cumulatively than any other team in football. You guys have been around here much longer than I have. Do you believe Jimmy will continue to spend at levels like that if the Browns aren't any good? Or will we see Jimmy pull back with the dome on the horizon and try to save a few bucks here or there because the Browns simply are not in the same position or the same thought bubble of we can win a championship that they were when they initially made the Deshaun Watson trade?
Have the Browns been a legitimate Super Bowl contender in any of these seasons? No.
They thought they were, and we thought they were. It turns out,
I did
in
not
hindsight.
think. When?
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah,
I
Jason
did not.
picked them to make the Super
This
Bowl.
year?
not this year,
Oh.
but during that era. I remember doing shows with you when you were all on board with Baker.
I was.
So?
But that's not since 2021.
Oh, you're right. Oh,
Yeah,
that's fair.
Early Baker, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's fair.
even if you could argue in 2021, coming off the COVID season,
Yeah.
the way Baker had played in 2020, that yes, it was maybe in 2021, but since then they were mediocre in 21, and Baker obviously regressed.
I did get swept up in the playoffs, and I thought Flacco had a big enough arm that he could
Right.
take him there, and they lost the first game, and that was bad.
And I say that just to say, listen, you never know. Some teams go up and down with their spending to some degree.
Right.
But the only thing, I could criticize Jimmy Haslam for a million things. The only thing to this point in his Browns tenure, the only thing
Yeah.
that I cannot criticize him for is spending.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so, is it possible because they're going to stink next year that the spending will go down? I guess to some degree, but most of that money is already accounted for.
Yes.
Now, there may not be that much new spending this year on free agents, but I just think that's not because he is going to pull back the purse strings. It's just because what's the point of
Right.
bringing in veteran free agents when you're going to stink?
Right.
So, yes, it's always
Most people
possible.
thought the Commanders were going to stink this year, and they brought in veteran free agents.
Well,
And they drafted a quarterback, too.
that's true, but it was the quarterback that turned it
Right,
around.
but they didn't know that.
That's true, but if the Browns,
Those guys were signed before Jaden Daniels.
that's true, but when free agency starts, by that point, the Browns will probably know whether or not there's a quarterback they think can turn the franchise around in the draft, don't you think? By the time we get to free agency, it's only like 5-6 weeks before the draft.
I mean, yeah.
I think they already know.
I think they
They
know
should
They already know.
They
if
should
the guy's
know.
worthy
Okay.
of the pick. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't. You never know until the guy's in the building. And,
That's fair.
And you can wrap your arms around the guy and understand,
Right.
like, does he have the capacity to go out there and do it right now?
Right,
as a
but right
rookie?
now, let's say right now the Browns are like, let's say they're not taking a quarterback. They've already decided. Well, they know they're going to be, best case scenario, mediocre next year. Best case, if they're not taking a quarterback and that quarterback doesn't turn into a great player. So why would you spend big in free agency this year? And I don't know that they can because the cap has become a factor for them, especially if they have to trade Myles Garrett.
It's a tough spot, Adam, because
Yeah.
the team, if you're not taking the quarterback this year
Yeah.
at a high pick,
Right.
and you're going to be mediocre next year, you're going to be caught in purgatory picking a quarterback again next year in the middle of the first round.
So, yes.
and if that's the case, like, it's a tough spot because the coaching staff will get blown out if they win 2-3 games. Yet if you don't take a quarterback in this draft, you need to win 2-3 games
right.
so you can get the number 1 or 2 pick next year.
Right,
So
'cause if
it's,
those
it's
top
just a really, really tough spot, man.
And to your point, if those top 2 or 3 quarterbacks next year are super special, Well, even if you have,
You certainly can't bank on that now, by the way, because
can't.
that changes by the second.
that's true. And the Browns, I know a lot of people think, well, if they trade Myles Garrett, they'll have all this draft capital. But let's say there's two quarterbacks. Let's say Arch Manning and what's his name that Zach liked, the kid from
Garrett
Nussmeier.
Nussmeier. LSU.
Let's say those two guys are, by the time we get to next year, it's clear those guys are going 1 and 2. Well, the teams at 1 and 2 are not trading down.
Depends who they are.
Well, unless it's in an unlikely situation where one of those teams doesn't need a quarterback, which is not rarely the case. It happens sometimes. But how often do the teams picking 1 and 2 not need a quarterback?
Would you be shocked if the Bears are 1 or 2 again next year? I wouldn't.
I'd be shocked. I would.
I wouldn't.
I would. They got.
I'd be shocked.
1 or 2. I mean, I don't think they'd be there. I'd be shocked.
I
think you
think
meant
Caleb's
Carolina,
good. I
not
think
Chicago.
Caleb's good.
No,
enough
I'm in Chicago.
Okay.
to get them to the point where they're not going to be picking that high.
I agree. And by the way, I don't think Carolina's going to be. I think Bryce Young showed a lot of improvement second half of last year.
The fact that he was able to improve after everything that he went through, all that adversity, says a lot about the kid.
When they're best.
Dude, these kids from Alabama, man, I'm telling you, Nick Saban deserves
Yeah.
a lot of credit because these dudes come to the NFL as grown-ass men and they know how to handle tough situations.
Yep.
The Jalen Hurts thing's unbelievable. But, like, I look at that kid, too,
Yeah.
Bryce Young. Like, people were writing him off. We were writing him off.
Yes.
Not me. But some people were in the media after a couple of games. It's
And-
like, okay, give the kid a chance.
And his best wide receiver was a 33-year-old or 34-year-old Adam Thielen. Like, that was his best. And Thielen missed part of the season, too. So, yeah, I mean, what's his name? Chuba Hubbard had a nice season.
He did.
Solid year as a running back. But they didn't have a lot of talent on that team, and he
And
played
they certainly
really well.
they had no defense.
So, you ask me right now who's going to be the top 2 picks in the draft, I'm going to say could be the Browns. Right now, could be the Raiders, Titans, whoever. You never know. But more often than not, the teams picking 1 and 2 need a quarterback.
Yeah.
But yes, it is possible.
Jason, do you think Haslam would continue to spend at a top 5 level in terms of overall cash spent if the Browns aren't still at least playoff contenders?
I think he would spend whatever it takes. I don't think the spending is the issue. I think it's whether it's you at some point you just have to take your medicine with some of this stuff. And if you chalk it up that let's follow Bull's example, they're not going to take a quarterback. Well, then just eat the medicine on Deshaun and on Miles and all this stuff and get this stuff off your books. Because part of the reason the Browns haven't been able to spend, yes, it's the fact that they redo contracts all the time, but it's also all the money that they rolled over from year to year when they were really bad. And it's almost like, we'll go back to the NBA, when with the NBA taxes and everything, with repeat offender and all that, at some point you need to get out of that and sort of cleanse everything, and then when you're good again, you can sort of restart it.
But it's much more punitive in the NBA.
For sure. But I'm just saying, if they could clean up some of this stuff so that they then have the space when they are good, if they ever are good. But if you just keep putting Band-Aids on head wounds, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to let the body heal, I guess. It'd be the best way to say it. Now, if you are going to take a quarterback at 2 and you're just going to keep going and you're going to keep going and you're going to keep going, then yeah, he's going to keep spending.
Right. And
they're going to keep finding nooks and crannies and crevices to try and I think they're pretty much out of contracts that they can restructure at this point. And that's why the contracts that you pick are what is so critical to doing it this way. And we've talked about it before. I wrote about it like a year and a half ago. The Eagles are the best team in town, or the best team in the league, at knowing which guys to restructure. And, of course, Andrew spent a year with Philly. It's probably where he came up with this, and Jimmy's willingness to spend. A team like Atlanta picked the wrong guys to restructure, and they were in cap hell for a couple years.
By the way, to your point on the Eagles, I don't think they have a player making more than $25 million or somewhere around there. Double check that, Mike. Like, they're not paying. I've been hearing all of a sudden, the last couple of days. How can the Browns learn from the Eagles? The Eagles.
They have 2 guys making over $25 million.
Who?
Jalen Hurts makes 42.5, and A.J. Brown makes 30.
Okay, I don't know. That's still only 2 guys making more than 25 million. And in the grand scheme of quarterbacks, $42 million for a quarterback is not that bad compared to what they're paying. The Chiefs have the best quarterback and the best coach. But the Eagles, I think, have been the best organization
100%.
For a while.
Yeah.
They have a great owner. They have a great GM. And so the Browns can't be the Eagles,
Howie Roseman
unless they
was
become
the-
much smarter.
Howie Roseman was there when I was there. He was VP of player ops when I was there
Yeah.
in 06.
Right.
So the guy's been a lifer with the Philadelphia Eagles,
Yep.
and the owner's been there the entire time, Jeffrey
Yep.
Lurie, and like they just get it, you know.
They get it.
Philly, you're referencing. Sorry to cut you off, Jason.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You are referencing their cap number. They have no one over 25 million. They have no one over 22 million in terms of cap.
They just won the Super Bowl,
Jalen Hurts-
and they have nobody with more than a $22 million cap hit.
Here's
Like
their
they-
top 5 guys. I mean, Hurts, Brown, Lane Johnson, Josh Sweat, Jordan. How's the guy's name?
Malata.
Malata.
And and what they have in common? They're all good.
But
They're not
Slay.
paying anybody that sucks.
And they're
Dallas
really
Goedert,
good at
Devontae
identifying
Smith,
which
Bryce
guys
Huff,
to restructure.
Yes.
Saquon Barkley's making $6.8 million.
I mean, think about Philly. I think the 2 best run teams in the NFL are probably Philly and San Francisco. And both of them missed on quarterbacks, and they just kept right on going. Philly missed on Carson Wentz, gave him a ton of money. They found Jalen Hurts, and they just kept right on rolling.
Yep.
San Francisco made the awful trade for Trey Lance.
Yep.
They found Brock Purdy, and they just kept right on going.
Right.
To me, I mean,
They're
Buffalo
both-
would probably be up
Kansas
there
City's
too.
got to be up there too.
Of course.
Yeah.
But when you have the best quarterback in the league,
you can't just copy what Philly's doing. They hit on so their hit
Their
percentage
draft record's incredible.
is crazy. So of course Philadelphia can get away with the 6th or 7th or 8th best quarterback in the league instead of number 1.
Yeah,
because the
but
rest of the
but they
teams
also run their offense around that quarterback's strengths.
100%.
So it's like you can't put Jalen Hurts into another offense and it be like that.
No, you're not having
It's
to
not.
drop back all the time.
No.
And Jalen Hurts, I think he's been so over-criticized. The guy's a very good player. Nobody's saying he's Lamar or Allen or Burrow or Mahomes. But he's just as good as anybody else.
The dude is a stinking war daddy and a champion.
That's it.
And a champion in life, dude. I mean, the guy has been through. I saw the interview again. It was played on some of the reels. Like when he got interviewed after he got benched in the national championship game 2018.
Yeah.
Tua comes in, and like he had a bad first half. He gets benched.
Yep.
He has to transfer to Oklahoma, and like to go through all of that. And by the way, in that interview, he still was like praising his teammates and like such a positive.
Teammates
like,
love him.
He's a
Yeah.
special person, man.
Yeah.
And that's what you can't tell going
Right.
into these drafts. Is like those intangibles that these players have are so crucial to a team's success in building a culture, especially around that quarterback position, because that guy is the heartbeat of that locker room.
but I do feel like the good teams can identify that.
Or do a better job in
Do a better-
general.
No,
Yes.
I think that's a totally accurate assessment. The Browns are not one of those teams.
They
No.
haven't been.
And so,
They haven't,
and so
no.
why would we give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to picking this
Because-
most important player?
Don't you rely on, like, wouldn't the Eagles rely on Nick Saban at that point? And Nick, I'm sure, would be, or whoever the head coach is who has
Yeah.
relationships with these NFL teams, would give you a pretty honest assessment of,
Sure.
you don't, this guy's a headache. You don't want this guy. Or this guy, I love this guy like his son. This guy's absolutely, like,
Yeah.
The head coach, you have to, I would imagine, you have to have trust in the head coach of the college program, and the head coach needs to be pretty honest with these NFL teams.
Yeah.
Or else you're going to burn that bridge in the future.
Right. I also think
Part of the reason why I'm intrigued with Jalen Milroe just a little bit.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah. I hear you.
It's teams get so enamored by 40 times and you know how high they can jump, how strong a guy is. And I'm not saying those things aren't important. Of course they are. They matter. Talent matters. But nothing matters more than a guy's want to, a guy's work effort. And it does seem like, and maybe it's not the case. Maybe the Browns do due diligence on it, and for whatever reason it hasn't worked out.
missed.
But it seems like the better teams just get things like that right.
Yeah.
Even in this division with the Steelers and the Ravens, they generally do a much better job of that.
I mean, I'm going to say this, and it's going to be very evident which player you would lean to here. But like I always look at the quarterback position, and I look at, okay, where did he play college ball?
Yep.
Did he play at a blue blood? Did he have a great system, great coach in college?
Yeah.
And also high school too. You look at the high school coaches and see what kind of program he came from. And on top of that, I like coaches' kids. It's a coach's son. Those guys have a different work ethic, different drive than a lot of players. And every time I talk to these coaches when I do my games during the week, first thing they say about a player who's like just a grinder, a work ethic, like coach's kid. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guess what? Shedeur Sanders, Coach's kid grew up around it. Like that.
Yeah.
That's little. Those things to me matter maybe even more so than some of the things you can see on tape.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with. I've said that about Shedeur. The fact that you grew up Deion's kid, there ain't nothing you can't handle. Like you've seen it all.
Yes.
You've been told
Literally.
it all.
Yeah.
You've been screamed at it all. So the pressure issue, I don't worry about that with him at all.
No, not
at all.